Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the leather boots of a 9th century merchant, feeling the rough wooden deck beneath your feet as your longship cuts through the morning mist toward Hedeby, one of the most bustling Viking trading posts in all of Scandinavia. The salt spray stings your cheeks, and you can already smell the wood smoke and fish oil that mark civilization ahead. Your cargo hold creaks with amber from the Baltic shores, furs from the northern forests, and iron tools forged in your homeland's workshops. You probably won't survive this journey without losing at least half your profits to shrewd Viking traders who have been haggling since they could walk. But hey, that's the price of international commerce in an age where a miscalculated deal could leave you stranded 1,000 miles from home. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I love seeing how far these bedtime stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun barely crests the horizon as your ship's prow nudges against the wooden pier of Hedeby's harbor. This isn't just any trading post. It's the beating heart of Viking commerce, where merchants from as far as Constantinople rub shoulders with fur trappers from the Arctic Circle. The archaeological evidence suggests Hedeby handled more international trade than most European cities of its time, with goods flowing in from places most Vikings couldn't even pronounce correctly. You stretch your cramped legs and survey the awakening settlement. Smoke rises from countless hearths as merchants and craftsmen begin their daily routines. The harbor already bustles with activity. Despite the early hour, Viking traders don't believe in sleeping in when there's money to be made. Your first challenge is securing a good spot for your wares, because prime real estate in a medieval marketplace is just as cutthroat as modern-day New York, except with more axes involved. The peculiar thing about Viking trading posts is how they operated on what historians call reputation currency. Your word was literally worth its weight in silver, and breaking a deal could blacklist you from every major trading route from Iceland to the Black Sea. You've spent years building your merchant reputation, and today you'll either enhance it or watch it crumble faster than a sandcastle at high tide. As you secure your mooring lines, other merchants eye your cargo with the calculating stare of professional appraisers. Some wear the distinctive brooches of Gotland traders. Others sport the weather-beaten look of men who have sailed the dangerous northern routes to Greenland. A few sport scars that suggest their trading expeditions occasionally involved more sword swinging than silver counting, though most successful merchants prefer negotiation to bloodshed. Corpses make terrible repeat customers. After all, harbor master approaches, a grizzled veteran whose job involves collecting fees and keeping the peace among hundreds of competitive merchants from dozens of different cultures. He speaks in the trading lingua franca, a mixture of Old Norse, Saxon, and Slavic words that evolved to facilitate international commerce. You hand over your harbor fees in silver bits, carefully weighed on portable scales that every serious merchant carries. Historians still argue whether Viking trading posts like Hedeby were primarily Scandinavian enterprises or truly international marketplaces. But walking through the morning bustle, you can hear at least 6 different languages being haggled in before you've taken 20 steps from your ship. You shoulder your leather satchel of samples and head toward the main marketplace, your boots squelching through mud that's been churned by countless merchant feet, ox-drawn carts, and the occasional horse of a wealthy trader. The market square spreads before you like a medieval shopping mall, except instead of fluorescent lighting, you've got smoky oil lamps and the occasional torch flickering against wooden stall posts. Setting up shop requires strategy worthy of a military campaign. The best spots near the well, close to the main thoroughfare, with good visibility from multiple approaches, are claimed by merchants who've been coming here for decades. You're not quite at that level yet, but you've got connections. That Saxon trader you helped out of a jam in York last summer saves you a decent spot near the leather goods section, proving that networking was just as important in the 9th century as it is today. Your stall consists of a wooden trestle table, a canvas awning to protect goods from rain, and a locked chest for storing your most valuable items. The setup process reveals the fascinating logistics of medieval commerce. Every piece of equipment had to be portable, durable, and secure enough to protect valuable cargo from both weather and thieves. Vikings were remarkably practical people, and their trading infrastructure reflects centuries of learning through trial and very expensive error. The morning air fills with the sounds of commerce awakening, the thud of wooden crates being unloaded, the clink of metal goods being arranged, and the constant murmur of merchants greeting old acquaintances and sizing up new competition. Some traders specialize in bulk commodities, grain, salt, iron bars, while others deal in luxury items that might travel thousands of miles to reach a single wealthy customer. You begin arranging your wares with the care of a museum curator. Each item tells a story of distant places and dangerous journeys. Your amber pieces came from beaches where Baltic waves deposit fossilized tree resin that's older than human civilization. The furs represent weeks of negotiation with trappers who venture into forests so remote that getting lost means becoming a cautionary tale for the next generation of wilderness traders. One of the quirkier aspects of Viking trading culture was their obsession with standardized weights and measures, not because they were particularly honest, but because disputes over measurements could escalate into blood feuds that disrupted entire trade networks. Every merchant carries a set of bronze weights, often decorated with intricate patterns that serve as both functional tools and status symbols. As neighboring stalls complete their setups, you notice the incredible diversity of goods flowing through this single marketplace. Frankish swords gleam next to Byzantine silk, while amber jewelry shares display space with walrus ivory chess pieces carved by Greenlandic craftsmen. The global economy of the 9th century was far more interconnected than many people realize, though it moved at the pace of sailing ships rather than fiber optic cables. The merchant next to you, a weathered Norwegian who deals in Arctic fox pelts, offers the traditional morning greeting of comparing the previous night's weather to the trading prospects ahead. Cold winds bring warm profits, he says, with the satisfied grin of someone who's learned to find silver linings in every storm cloud, literal or metaphorical. Historians still argue whether these trading posts operated more like modern free markets or were heavily regulated by local chieftains. But the morning energy suggests that commerce here flows with the natural rhythm of supply meeting demand, mediated by the age-old art of friendly haggling. Your first serious customers of the day arrive before the morning mist has fully lifted, a group of fur traders whose appearance suggests they've spent the winter in regions where polar bears outnumber people. Their leader, a man whose beard has been braided with small silver rings, carries himself with the confident swagger of someone who's survived countless months in the wilderness and has the premium pelts to prove it. These aren't casual trappers selling a few rabbit skins to supplement their farming income. These are professional hunters who venture into the far northern reaches of Scandinavia, where the winter darkness lasts for months and the quality of fur reaches legendary standards. The pelts they're carrying represent the difference between keeping warm and freezing to death in a world without central heating, making them some of the most valuable trade goods of the medieval period. The negotiation begins with the ritual examination of pelts. You run your fingers through sable fur so soft it makes modern cashmere feel like burlap, checking for parasites, thin spots, or damage that might affect the selling price in southern markets. The trappers watch your every move with the intensity of poker players because they know you know good fur when you see it, and mutual respect is the foundation of profitable, long-term trading relationships. What makes these transactions fascinating is the complex logistics behind each pelt. That ermine stole didn't just walk into a trap. It required months of preparation, including scouting trap lines, maintaining equipment in subarctic conditions, and processing furs with techniques passed down through generations of northern hunters. The economic anthropology of Viking Age fur trading reveals supply chains that stretched across continents, all coordinated through personal relationships and reputation-based credit systems. The lead trapper produces his prize piece, a white fox pelt so perfect it seems to glow in the morning light. This is the kind of fur that ends up adorning Byzantine emperors or wealthy Frankish nobles, and everyone present knows it. The price negotiation that follows involves not just silver, but complex considerations of future trading relationships, seasonal availability, and the political stability of various southern markets. One peculiar aspect of the medieval fur trade was its role in international diplomacy. Premium pelts were often used as diplomatic gifts, with the quality of fur scent conveying subtle messages about the sender's wealth, taste, and military capabilities. A perfectly matched set of sable cloaks could seal a peace treaty more effectively than a dozen negotiated clauses, though admittedly with less legal permanence. The trappers also carry more exotic items: walrus ivory from Greenland expeditions, whale bone tools that demonstrate remarkable Arctic craftsmanship, and occasionally polar bear pelts that command prices equivalent to small farms in more temperate regions. These items represent the extreme edge of Viking exploration, where trading networks extended into environments that challenged the limits of medieval technology and human endurance. As the fur negotiations continue, you appreciate the seasonal rhythm that governs this trade. Winter trapping produces the finest pelts. Spring brings traders to market. Summer allows for long-distance transport. And autumn sees the goods reaching their final destinations before the cycle begins again. It's a system that requires precise timing and considerable financial risk, since a late spring or early winter could disrupt the entire annual profit cycle. Historians still argue whether the northern fur trade was primarily driven by European demand for luxury goods, or by the practical needs of expanding Scandinavian settlements. But examining these magnificent pelts, you suspect the answer is both: practical needs that evolved into luxury markets as trade networks became more sophisticated. The morning calm shatters as the fishing boats return from their pre-dawn expeditions, and the harbor transforms into controlled chaos that would make a modern stock exchange look positively serene. Fishermen shout competing claims about their catches, while merchants elbow their way toward the boats, everyone trying to secure the best fish before competitors can muscle in on the action. You wade into this maritime maelstrom because preserved fish represents one of the most reliable trade goods of the Viking Age: protein that can survive long sea voyages without spoiling, making it invaluable for feeding ship crews or supplying settlements that can't rely on local food sources. The trick is knowing which fish will preserve well and which varieties command premium prices in distant markets. The variety of catches reflects the incredible biodiversity of northern European waters before industrial fishing changed the equation. Massive cod that would be considered giants by modern standards, herring runs so thick they allegedly turned the water silver, and salmon so abundant that medieval laws sometimes prohibited feeding them to servants more than 3 times per week. Looking at these catches, you realize that what we consider normal fish sizes today would have been considered disappointingly small by 9th century standards. Your primary interest lies in fish suitable for long-term preservation, particularly those that respond well to the salt curing techniques that Viking traders have perfected over centuries of trial and error. The process involves layering fish with sea salt in wooden barrels, creating an environment hostile to the bacteria that cause spoilage. It's basically medieval food science, and getting it wrong means watching your investment rot into expensive fish fertilizer. The most prized catches are the ones that preserve into something better than their fresh versions, like the herring that, when properly cured, develops complex flavors that complement the limited seasoning options available to medieval cooks. These preserved fish don't just provide nutrition, they add flavor to otherwise bland grain-based diets, making them luxury items despite their humble origins. One of the quirkier aspects of Viking fish trading was the development of specialized preservation techniques for different species. Cod responded well to air drying in the cold northern climate, creating stockfish that could last for years without additional preservation. Salmon was often smoked over specific wood types that imparted distinctive flavors, prized by wealthy customers who could afford culinary sophistication. The fishing boats also bring in more exotic marine products: whale oil for lamps, seal skins for waterproof clothing, and occasionally ambergris, the whale digestive byproduct that forms the base for the most expensive perfumes. These specialty items represent the intersection of necessity and luxury that characterizes much Viking trade, where practical needs often generate unexpected premium markets. As you negotiate for barrels of prime herring, the conversation reveals the sophisticated weather prediction and seasonal planning that successful fishing required. These fishermen read ocean conditions with the expertise of modern meteorologists, knowing that mistiming a fishing expedition could mean the difference between prosperity and starvation for entire communities. The controlled chaos around you represents more than just commerce. It's a complex social system where fishing crews, preservation specialists, transport merchants, and long-distance traders coordinate their activities through networks of personal relationships that span the entire North Atlantic. Missing a step in this chain could strand tons of fish to rot on the docks, making reliability and trust more valuable than raw haggling skills. Historians still argue whether Viking fishing was primarily subsistence activity or commercial enterprise. But watching the sophisticated logistics of the morning fish market, you suspect it was both simultaneously subsistence activities that evolved into commercial systems as trade networks became more reliable and profitable. The fish negotiations concluded, you retreat to your stall to conduct the delicate ritual of silver weighing, the medieval equivalent of digital payment processing, except involving actual precious metal and scales that require the steady hands of a surgeon. Every serious transaction in the Viking trading world involves this careful dance of measurement, because in an economy without standardized coinage, the weight and purity of silver determines whether you're making a profit or getting royally cheated. Your portable scale represents centuries of metallurgical evolution, with bronze arms precisely calibrated to detect differences measured in fractions of ounces. The weights themselves are small masterpieces of medieval craftsmanship, often decorated with intricate patterns that serve both aesthetic and anti-counterfeiting purposes. Forged weights were a constant concern in medieval trade, and experienced merchants could spot fraudulent measuring equipment with the expertise of modern bank tellers detecting counterfeit bills. Silver itself comes in various forms that reflect the international nature of Viking commerce. Byzantine coins rubbed smooth by countless transactions, Arabic dirhams that traveled along the Volga trade route, and hacksilver pieces of jewelry or ingots chopped into convenient sizes for smaller purchases. This monetary system required merchants to be part mathematician, part metallurgist, and part appraiser, since determining the value of payment involved assessing both weight and silver content. What makes this system fascinating is how it enabled international trade without requiring universal monetary standards. A Byzantine coin worth 10 dirhams in Constantinople might be valued differently in Hedeby, not because of exchange rate fluctuations, but because local merchants valued silver purity and weight over imperial mint stamps. It was a floating currency system that predated modern forex markets by 1,000 years, though with considerably more manual labor involved in each transaction. The weighing process also reveals the sophisticated credit systems that Viking merchants developed to facilitate long-distance trade. Rather than carrying enormous quantities of silver on dangerous journeys, experienced traders often worked through networks of credit arrangements where reputation served as collateral. A merchant's word, backed by years of successful transactions, could be worth more than a chest full of silver, though having both never hurt anyone's negotiating position. One peculiar aspect of Viking silver trading was the constant testing for purity, since mixing silver with cheaper metals was as old as metallurgy itself. Merchants carried small testing stones and acid solutions to verify the silver content of unfamiliar coins or hack silver pieces. Getting caught trying to pass off debased silver could end a trading career faster than a longship sinks in a North Sea storm, making honesty both an ethical choice and a practical business strategy. The international silver trade also connected Viking merchants to economic systems spanning from Greenland to Central Asia. The silver flowing through Hedeby might have been mined in the Hindu Kush, coined in Baghdad, traded along the Volga River, and finally reached Scandinavia through networks of relationships that spanned continents. It was globalization powered by determination and sharp swords, with profit margins that made the risks worthwhile for those brave enough to attempt it. As you complete your silver transactions, you appreciate the mathematical precision required for successful medieval commerce. Every deal involves calculations of weight, purity, market value, transport costs, and seasonal price fluctuations, performed without calculators, computers, or standardized accounting systems. Success required keeping complex financial information organized in your head, while maintaining the social relationships that made trade networks function. Historians still argue whether Viking silver standards were primarily influenced by Islamic monetary systems or developed independently through Scandinavian trading practices. But weighing your carefully accumulated profits, you realize the system works regardless of its historical origins. Silver is silver, and profit margins don't care about academic debates over cultural diffusion versus independent innovation. The afternoon sun illuminates one of medieval Europe's most remarkable spectacles. Merchants from the ends of the known world conducting business in languages that blend and merge like streams flowing into a river. You approach the section of the marketplace dominated by foreign traders, where the air thickens with exotic incense, unfamiliar spices, and the musical cadences of Arabic, Greek, and languages you can't even identify. but somehow find beautiful. The most striking figures are the Arab merchants, whose long robes and carefully maintained beards mark them as representatives of the vast Islamic trading networks that stretch from Spain to Central Asia. These aren't casual traders making opportunistic deals. They're professional merchants, backed by sophisticated financial systems that make Viking commerce look almost primitive by comparison. Their presence in Hedeby demonstrates the remarkable reach of 9th century Islamic civilization, where commercial networks connected markets that were literally thousands of miles apart. What they're selling reads like a catalog of medieval luxury goods. Silk that shimmers with an otherworldly quality impossible to produce in Northern Europe. Spices that transform bland, preserved foods into flavorful meals. And precious stones that catch light like captured starfare. But perhaps most intriguingly, they offer books, hand-copied manuscripts containing knowledge that represents the cutting edge of medieval scholarship in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. The Byzantine merchants present an entirely different commercial culture, one built around the remnants of Roman imperial administration and Greek commercial traditions. Their goods reflect the sophisticated urban civilization of Constantinople. Fine glassware that demonstrates technical skills, Viking craftsmen can barely comprehend processed foods that showcase Mediterranean agricultural abundance, and metalwork that combines practical functionality with artistic sophistication that borders on the miraculous. One of the most fascinating aspects of these international trading relationships is the cultural exchange that occurs alongside commercial transactions. The Arab merchants share astronomical knowledge that helps Viking navigators plot more accurate courses, while Scandinavian traders provide detailed information about northern sea routes that Islamic geographers hadn't previously mapped. It's not just goods flowing along these trade networks. It's ideas, technologies, and worldviews that gradually transform all the cultures involved. The linguistic challenges of international medieval commerce produced remarkable solutions. Most experienced foreign merchants speak several languages with varying degrees of fluency, while some specialize in serving as translators and cultural mediators for deals involving multiple parties. Watching these negotiations unfold, you realize you're witnessing the development of international business practices that wouldn't look entirely foreign in a modern global marketplace, though admittedly with more swords visible during contract disputes. The foreign merchants also bring news from distant lands, reports of political changes, natural disasters, military campaigns, and trade opportunities that might affect future business planning. In an age without newspapers, international merchants served as unofficial intelligence networks, making their conversations valuable for reasons that extended far beyond immediate commercial interests. What strikes you most about these international traders is their cosmopolitan sophistication. These are men who have seen the architectural wonders of Baghdad, navigated the political complexities of Byzantine court culture, and somehow found their way to a muddy trading post in Scandinavia because they understood that profit opportunities exist wherever different economic systems intersect. They're medieval globalists, and their presence transforms Hedeby from a regional marketplace into a genuine international commercial center. Historians still argue whether these foreign trading relationships were primarily motivated by economic opportunities or diplomatic considerations. But observing the complex negotiations between Arab silver merchants and Scandinavian amber dealers, you suspect the distinction between commerce and diplomacy becomes meaningless when transactions involve representatives of different civilizations conducting business in good faith despite fundamental cultural differences. The sun reaches its zenith as the serious morning business transitions into the equally important afternoon ritual of communal feasting, because Viking merchants understood that deals sealed over shared food and drink carry more weight than contracts written on parchment. The central plaza fills with the smoky aroma of roasting meat, fresh bread, and the distinctive smell of ale that's been brewed with techniques perfected over countless generations of Scandinavian brewmasters. You join a mixed group of merchants around one of the communal fire pits, where a whole pig rotates on a wooden spit that requires constant attention from whoever drew the short straw for cooking duty. The democratic nature of Viking feasting means that wealthy amber traders sit beside struggling iron merchants, sharing food and conversation with an egalitarian spirit that reflects the practical realities of life in a dangerous profession where today's competitor might be tomorrow's rescue crew. Meal itself showcases the incredible variety of foods flowing through medieval trade networks. Fresh bread made from wheat that traveled hundreds of miles, preserved fish that demonstrate the sophisticated food technology of Northern Europe, and vegetables that survived the journey from southern growing regions through preservation techniques that were closely guarded trade secrets. It's fusion cuisine created by necessity rather than culinary experimentation, though the results are often surprisingly delicious. The drinking culture around these merchant feasts reveals fascinating aspects of Viking social organization. The ale and mead aren't just alcoholic beverages. They're safe alternatives to water that might carry diseases, social lubricants that help merchants from different cultures find common ground, and ceremonial drinks that accompany the oath-making and promise-keeping that holds trade networks together. Getting moderately intoxicated with business partners was considered sound commercial practice, since it demonstrated trust and mutual vulnerability. Conversation flows as freely as the ale, covering topics that range from practical trade information to international political gossip. You learn about new trade routes opening in the East, seasonal changes affecting various commodity prices, and the reliability of different transport methods for reaching distant markets. It's informal intelligence gathering disguised as social drinking, and the information exchanged during these casual conversations often proves more valuable than formal business negotiations. One particularly entertaining aspect of these merchant feasts is the storytelling tradition that emerges after the second round of drinks. Traders share tales of extraordinary profits, narrow escapes from bandits, storms that tested their courage, and deal-making adventures that sound increasingly improbable as the afternoon progresses. Some stories are clearly embellished for entertainment value, but others provide genuine insights into the challenges and opportunities of medieval long-distance commerce. The feast also serves practical diplomatic functions, allowing merchants to negotiate solutions to problems that might otherwise escalate into expensive disputes. A disagreement over cargo damage that could result in litigation is more easily resolved when both parties are sharing roasted meat and comparing stories about their families back home. It's conflict resolution through social bonding, and it works remarkably well for maintaining the peaceful atmosphere that makes profitable trading possible. As the afternoon feast continues, you notice how the social hierarchies of the marketplace temporarily dissolve. The Arab merchant, who commands respect through his connection to vast southern trade networks, shares jokes with the local fisherman who supplies daily necessities. The Byzantine silk trader discusses navigation techniques with the Greenlandic ivory dealer. These relationships, forged over shared meals and mutual respect, form the personal foundation that makes international medieval commerce function despite the absence of modern communication and transportation infrastructure. Historians still argue whether these communal feasting traditions were primarily social customs or business strategies. But watching the complex web of relationships being strengthened and renewed around the fire pit, you realize the distinction is meaningless. Successful medieval commerce required social systems that turned commercial relationships into personal bonds strong enough to survive the challenges of conducting business across vast distances and cultural differences. The afternoon heat drives you toward the shaded craft quarter, where the constant ringing of hammers on metal creates a rhythmic soundtrack that speaks of wealth being literally forged from raw materials. Here, artisans transform imported goods and local resources into finished products that command premium prices throughout the Viking trading world, demonstrating the value-added manufacturing that made established trading posts more profitable than simple commodity exchanges. The blacksmith shops fascinate you with their combination of practical functionality and artistic sophistication. These aren't just places where iron gets pounded into useful shapes, they're workshops where skilled craftsmen create weapons, tools, and decorative items that represent the cutting edge of medieval metallurgy. The master smiths can examine a piece of raw iron and predict exactly how it will behave when heated, hammered, and tempered, applying knowledge that combines scientific understanding with generations of practical experience, passed down through carefully guarded apprenticeship systems. What makes the craft quarter particularly interesting is how it demonstrates the international nature of medieval technology transfer. Techniques for working Damascus steel, learned from Islamic traders, blend with Frankish sword-making traditions and local Scandinavian innovations in iron processing. The result is metalwork combines the best elements from multiple technological traditions, creating products that often surpass the quality available in any single cultural region. The jewelry workshops reveal another fascinating aspect of Viking craftsmanship: the transformation of raw silver and amber into finished pieces that tell stories about their owner's wealth, taste, and social connections. The master jewelers can look at a lump of Baltic amber and visualize the finished brooch or pendant hidden within, then execute that vision with tools that seem almost primitive by modern standards, but produce results that rival contemporary fine jewelry. One of the quirkier aspects of the craft quarter is how specialized some of the workshops have become. There's a man who does nothing but create ivory chess pieces, each one carved with such intricate detail that completing a full set represents months of painstaking labor. Another workshop specializes in decorative metalwork for ship prows, creating the dragon heads and intricate patterns that make Viking longships instantly recognizable and psychologically intimidating to anyone unfortunate enough to see them approaching hostile shores. The economic organization of the craft quarter reflects sophisticated understanding of production efficiency and market specialization. Rather than every craftsman attempting to master every skill, workshops focus on particular products or techniques, then trade their specialized output for goods produced by other specialists. It's an early example of the division of labor that economists would later identify as one of the key factors in improving productivity and living standards. The apprenticeship systems operating in these workshops represent one of medieval Europe's most effective educational institutions. Young people from across Scandinavia travel to Hedeby, specifically to learn advanced crafting techniques from master artisans, then return to their home regions with skills that can transform local economies. It's technology transfer through human capital development, and it helps explain how innovations spread throughout the Viking world despite the absence of formal educational institutions or written technical manuals. The craft quarter also serves as a testing ground for new products and techniques. Master craftsmen experiment with different alloy compositions, decorative patterns, and manufacturing processes, then test market their innovations through the diverse customer base that flows through Hedeby's marketplace. Successful innovations quickly spread throughout the trade network, while failures are abandoned before they can waste significant resources. As you observe the various workshops, you appreciate the remarkable skill levels that medieval craftsmen achieved through pure dedication and practice. Without power tools, precision measuring instruments, or modern metallurgical knowledge, these artisans create products that demonstrate technical and artistic capabilities that modern manufacturers would struggle to match using traditional methods. Historians still argue whether medieval craft specialization was primarily driven by market demand or technological constraints. But watching master jewelers transform raw amber into finished art pieces, you realize both factors work together. Technical limitations encourage specialization, while market opportunities reward the pursuit of excellence within specialized fields. The afternoon sun casts harsh shadows over the marketplace's most disturbing reality, the area where human beings are bought and sold like any other commodity, reminding you that medieval commerce included transactions that modern sensibilities find abhorrent, but which were integral to the economic systems that made places like Hedeby profitable and strategically important. You approach this section with the grim necessity of someone who needs to understand all aspects of medieval trade, even those that challenge modern moral frameworks. The slave trade wasn't a marginal activity in Viking commerce. It was central to the economic networks that connected Scandinavia to international markets, providing both labor for expanding settlements and valuable trade goods for exchange with southern civilizations that maintained even larger slave-based economies. The people being sold represent the tragic human cost of Viking raids and warfare. Some are prisoners of war captured during military expeditions. Others are individuals taken during raids on monasteries, coastal settlements, or merchant convoys that couldn't adequately defend themselves. Still others are people who sold themselves or family members into slavery to escape starvation, debt, or other desperate circumstances that made bondage seem preferable to death. What makes this scene particularly disturbing is the business-like efficiency with which human transactions are conducted. Buyers examine potential purchases with the same careful attention they would give to horses or cattle, checking for signs of disease, assessing working capacity, and negotiating prices based on perceived value in various labor markets. It's the reduction of human dignity to economic calculation, and it operated on scales large enough to affect entire regions' demographics and cultural development. The economic logic behind slave trading reveals uncomfortable truths about medieval labor systems. In societies where agricultural productivity remained low by modern standards, human muscle power represented one of the most valuable forms of energy available for clearing forests, working mines, building fortifications, and performing other labor-intensive tasks that expanding civilizations required. Slaves weren't just luxury possessions for wealthy households. They were essential economic infrastructure for societies attempting to develop frontier territories or maintain complex urban centers. The international nature of the slave trade connected Viking merchants to customers throughout the known world. Islamic civilizations bought Scandinavian slaves for agricultural labor and domestic service, while Byzantine markets valued Northern Europeans for military service and skilled crafts. The profits from slave trading helped finance other commercial activities, meaning that even merchants who didn't directly deal in human cargo often benefited indirectly from slave-based wealth flowing through trading networks. One aspect of Viking slavery that differs from later historical periods is the possibility of social mobility for some enslaved individuals. Particularly capable slaves could earn their freedom through exceptional service, specialized skills, or successful integration into their owners' households. Some former slaves became successful merchants, craftsmen, or even warriors, though this upward mobility remained exceptional rather than typical. The presence of the slave market also demonstrates the violent realities underlying medieval prosperity. The wealth flowing through Hedeby's marketplace often originated from military expeditions that brought death and destruction to communities that couldn't defend themselves against Viking raiders. It's a reminder that medieval commerce operated within political and military contexts where economic opportunity and violent exploitation were often inseparable. As you observe these transactions, you're struck by the matter-of-fact acceptance of slavery by people who otherwise demonstrate remarkable sophistication in their commercial and social organizations. It's a jarring reminder that moral progress isn't necessarily correlated with technological or economic development, and that societies can achieve impressive accomplishments while maintaining institutions that cause tremendous human suffering. Historians still argue whether Viking slave trading was primarily motivated by economic opportunities or served other social and political functions. But witnessing the systematic nature of human commerce in Hedeby's marketplace, you realize it was deeply integrated into the economic foundations that made Viking expansion and prosperity possible, regardless of its moral implications from modern perspectives. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the marketplace transitions into its most intense phase. The evening negotiations, where the day's most significant deals are finalized under torchlight that flickers across faces tight with concentration and calculation. The casual morning browsing has given way to serious business, where experienced merchants deploy their most sophisticated negotiating strategies to secure arrangements that could determine their profitability for months or even years ahead. You find yourself drawn into a complex three-way negotiation involving Byzantine silk, Scandinavian amber, and Islamic silver that requires the kind of mathematical precision and cultural sensitivity that separates successful international merchants from those who end up stranded in foreign ports with worthless cargo. Each party brings different priorities, payment methods, and timeline constraints, making the negotiations resemble a medieval chess match where every move affects multiple future possibilities. The evening atmosphere intensifies the psychological pressure of deal-making. The flickering torchlight creates dramatic shadows that seem to emphasize every facial expression, while the gradual cooling air encourages faster decision-making before the comfortable negotiating conditions disappear entirely. There's something about conducting business by firelight that makes agreements feel more binding, perhaps because the effort required to meet under these conditions demonstrates serious commitment from all parties involved. What makes these evening negotiations particularly fascinating is how they reveal the sophisticated risk management strategies that successful Viking merchants developed to handle the uncertainties of medieval long-distance trade. Deals often include contingency clauses that account for seasonal weather changes, political instability in various regions, and the possibility that certain trade routes might become temporarily unavailable due to warfare or natural disasters. The negotiation process itself demonstrates remarkable cultural sophistication, as merchants from different civilizations find ways to bridge communication gaps that extend far beyond simple language barriers. Religious differences, dietary restrictions, business customs, and social hierarchies all affect how deals are structured and finalized. Success requires not just commercial acumen, but genuine cross-cultural competence that many modern international business people would struggle to match. One of the most intriguing aspects of these evening sessions is how they function as informal intelligence briefings, where merchants share information about political developments, natural disasters, and economic changes that might affect future trading opportunities. A casual comment about unusual weather patterns in Greenland could influence amber pricing strategies, while news of military campaigns in Frankish territories might affect the demand for high-quality weapons and armor. The deals being negotiated often involve deferred payments, advance orders for goods that haven't been produced yet, and complex arrangements for coordinating deliveries across multiple locations and seasonal cycles. It's medieval futures trading, where merchants speculate on everything from next year's harvest quality to the political stability of various kingdoms, then structure their agreements to profit from accurate predictions while minimizing losses from unexpected developments. As the negotiations continue, you observe the remarkable trust relationships that enable these complex arrangements to function without modern legal systems or enforcement mechanisms. Merchants are essentially extending credit to people they might not see again for months or years, relying on reputation networks and shared commercial customs to ensure that agreements made by Torchlight in Hedeby will be honored in markets stretching from Iceland to Constantinople. The evening's most complex negotiation involves a consortium of merchants planning a joint expedition to the eastern trade routes, where Scandinavian goods will be exchanged for Islamic silver and Byzantine luxury items through a network of partnerships that spans half the known world. The planning required for such ventures demonstrates the sophisticated logistical capabilities that Viking merchants developed to coordinate activities across vast distances and multiple political jurisdictions. Historians still argue whether these evening negotiation sessions were primarily commercial activities or served broader diplomatic functions, but participating in deals that involve merchants representing multiple civilizations, you realize the distinction becomes meaningless when commercial relationships create the personal bonds that prevent conflicts and facilitate peaceful cooperation across cultural boundaries that might otherwise generate suspicion and hostility. The negotiations concluded, you face the practical challenge of finding suitable accommodation in a trading post where hundreds of merchants compete for limited sleeping spaces that offer varying degrees of comfort, security, and protection from both weather and the occasional entrepreneurial thief who views sleeping traders as business opportunities rather than fellow professionals deserving basic courtesy. The lodging options reflect the social hierarchies and economic realities of medieval commerce. Wealthy merchants with established relationships can secure private rooms in substantial wooden buildings that offer real beds, secure storage for valuable goods, and meal service that goes beyond basic subsistence. These accommodations cost significantly more than basic alternatives, but they're investments in rest quality that can affect negotiating performance and overall business success throughout extended trading expeditions. You settle for middle-tier accommodation, a shared room in a well-maintained building where your sleeping area consists of a straw mattress, wool blankets that actually provide warmth, and a wooden chest with a reliable lock for storing your most valuable possessions. It's not luxury by any standard, but it's clean, reasonably secure, and populated by fellow merchants whose professional reputations depend on maintaining the peaceful atmosphere that makes communal lodging possible. The evening social dynamics in these shared accommodations reveal fascinating aspects of medieval merchant culture. Conversations continue long after official business hours, covering topics that range from practical trade advice to philosophical discussions about the nature of wealth, the ethics of various commercial practices, and the relationship between individual profit-seeking and broader social welfare. It's like a business school seminar conducted by oil lamp light, except with more personal stakes and practical experience informing the theoretical discussions. What makes these evening lodging experiences particularly valuable is how they facilitate the relationship building that underpins successful long-term trading careers. The merchant sharing your room might become a trusted partner for future expeditions, a reliable source of market information, or simply a friendly face in distant ports where familiar connections provide psychological comfort that helps maintain mental health during extended periods away from home communities. The security arrangements for merchant lodging demonstrate the practical challenges of protecting wealth in a world where law enforcement capabilities remain limited and personal protection ultimately depends on individual preparation and communal cooperation. Most experienced merchants sleep with weapons within easy reach, arrange their belongings to detect tampering, and participate in informal watch systems that help protect everyone's interests through mutual vigilance. One peculiar aspect of merchant lodging culture is how it serves as an informal educational system where experienced traders share knowledge with newcomers through casual conversations that cover everything from navigation techniques to customer psychology. These knowledge-sharing sessions help maintain the overall competence level of the merchant community, which benefits everyone by reducing the number of failed expeditions that can disrupt trade networks and create supply shortages. The lodging experience also provides insight into the personal costs of medieval commercial success. Many merchants spend months away from their families, sleeping in unfamiliar places among strangers, accepting physical discomfort and personal risk as necessary components of their chosen profession. The psychological resilience required for this lifestyle helps explain why successful medieval merchants often possessed personalities that combined entrepreneurial ambition with the emotional toughness needed to thrive in challenging and uncertain circumstances. As you settle into your straw mattress, surrounded by the quiet conversations and gentle snoring of fellow merchants, you appreciate the temporary community that forms among people who have chosen similar paths in life. Despite competition for customers and market opportunities, there's genuine camaraderie among professionals who understand the challenges and rewards of medieval long-distance commerce. Historians still argue whether merchant lodging arrangements were primarily practical necessities or served important social functions in maintaining trade network cohesion. But lying in the darkness, while listening to a Greenlandic ivory trader describe aurora displays that sound like divine light shows, you realize these shared experiences create personal bonds that transform commercial relationships into something approaching genuine friendship between people from remarkably different backgrounds. The darkness before dawn finds you stirring awake to the sound of cargo being loaded, ropes being tested, and the quiet conversations of merchants preparing for departures that will scatter them across the known world like seeds carried by ocean winds. Your own departure preparations require the same careful attention to detail that can mean the difference between profitable success and expensive disaster in an age where mistakes made during loading can't be corrected until reaching the next major port. You check your newly acquired goods with the methodical precision of someone who understands that medieval commerce rewards careful attention to seemingly minor details. The amber pieces are wrapped in soft leather to prevent scratching. The silver is secured in locked containers that distribute weight evenly throughout your ship's hold, and the preserved fish is arranged to ensure proper air circulation that will prevent spoilage during the ocean crossing ahead. The pre-dawn harbor bustles with activity that demonstrates the remarkable logistical coordination required for medieval international trade. Ships depart on schedules determined by tidal conditions, seasonal weather patterns, and the complex timing required to reach distant markets when demand peaks and supply remains manageable. It's medieval just-in-time delivery, except with considerably more variables and significantly higher consequences for miscalculation. Loading your ship requires balancing multiple competing considerations. Weight distribution that ensures seaworthiness, cargo organization that facilitates unloading at various destinations, and security arrangements that protect valuable goods from both weather damage and human interference. Every item's placement reflects calculations about its relative value, fragility, and importance to your overall commercial strategy. As you oversee the loading process, you notice other merchants making their own departure preparations with varying degrees of sophistication and experience. Some display the confident efficiency of veterans who have repeated these procedures countless times, while others reveal the nervous energy of newcomers who haven't yet developed the systematic approaches that turn complex logistics into manageable routines. Departure conversations among merchants reveal the remarkable scope of medieval trading networks. Ships leaving Hedeby's harbor this morning will carry goods to destinations that span from Greenland's icebound settlements to the sun-baked markets of North Africa, connecting economic systems that operate under vastly different political, environmental, and cultural conditions, but somehow manage to coordinate their activities through networks of personal relationships and commercial agreements. One of the most striking aspects of these pre-dawn departures is how they demonstrate the courage required for medieval long-distance commerce. Every merchant boarding a ship accepts risks that include shipwreck, piracy, political upheaval, market collapse, and dozens of other potential disasters that could transform profitable expeditions into expensive failures or personal tragedies. The fact that trade networks continued expanding despite these dangers testifies to both the profit opportunities available and the remarkable determination of the people willing to pursue them. The final preparations also highlight the sophisticated navigation and seamanship skills that made Viking expansion possible. Your ship's captain checks wind conditions, tidal schedules, and weather signs with the expertise of someone whose survival depends on reading natural conditions that modern sailors monitor through electronic instruments. It's environmental science applied through generations of practical experience and carefully preserved traditional knowledge. As your ship clears the harbor and sets course for distant markets, you look back at Hedeby's receding silhouette with the mixed emotions of someone leaving a place that represents both opportunity and challenge. The trading post will continue operating long after your departure, facilitating thousands of transactions that collectively create the economic networks that connect medieval civilizations despite the geographical and cultural distances that separate them. The rhythmic sound of oars cutting through water gradually gives way to the whisper of wind filling your sail, and you settle into the contemplative mood that long sea voyages encourage. The cargo hold behind you contains the tangible results of successful negotiations, but the real value of your Hedeby experience lies in the relationships established, the knowledge gained, and the reputation enhanced through another successful trading expedition. Your ship moves steadily through waters that have carried countless other merchants on similar journeys, participating in commercial networks that demonstrate humanity's remarkable ability to create cooperation and mutual benefit across boundaries that might otherwise generate conflict and isolation. The medieval trading world represents globalization powered by personal courage and professional competence, where individual success depends on understanding both local conditions and international opportunities. Historians still argue whether medieval trade networks were primarily economic systems or served broader cultural and political functions. But sailing toward distant horizons with a hold full of carefully selected goods, you realize the distinction misses the essential point. Commerce was the mechanism through which medieval civilizations discovered their common humanity, despite all the differences that might have kept them permanently isolated from each other. The gentle motion of your ship cutting through calm morning waters gradually slows your heartbeat and softens your breathing as the excitement of successful trading gives way to the peaceful rhythm of ocean travel. The sun climbs higher above the horizon, painting the water in shades of gold and silver that remind you of the precious metals you've carefully secured in your cargo hold. But now, those commercial concerns seem distant and dreamlike compared to the simple pleasure of watching light dance across endless waves. Your fellow merchants have settled into the quiet routines of long-distance travel, some dozing against their cargo bundles, others staring thoughtfully at the horizon where water meets sky in a line, so perfect it seems drawn by divine geometry. The conversations have faded to occasional murmurs, replaced by the soothing sounds of wind in the rigging and water flowing past the wooden hull that carries you steadily toward whatever adventures await in distant ports. The stresses and intensity of marketplace negotiations feel increasingly remote as your mind drifts toward memories of home family gatherings around warm hearths, familiar faces in well-known places, the comfort of sleeping in your own bed surrounded by possessions that tell the story of your life's accumulated experiences. These thoughts don't bring sadness, but rather a gentle anticipation of future homecomings, enriched by the wealth and wisdom gained through brave journeys into unknown territories. Your breathing gradually synchronizes with the ocean's eternal rhythm, and your eyes grow heavy as the morning sun warms your face with the kind of gentle heat that makes consciousness feel optional and sleep seem like the most natural response to perfect contentment. The sounds around you blur into a seamless lullaby of wind and water, punctuated by the occasional creak of rope or timber that speaks of a sturdy ship carrying precious cargo safely toward distant shores where new adventures await. But for now, there's only the peaceful present moment where all is well, and sleep comes as naturally as waves meeting the shore in their endless, soothing dance through time.